Welcome to the Video Game Kill Count, where we tally up the deaths in all our favorite horror games. I'm your host, Natalie Rode, and today I'm looking at Dead of Night, released in 2020. Dead of Night is a full-motion video horror game developed by Baggy Cat Entertainment, founded by Tim and Claire Fallen. If that surname sounds familiar, it might be because you've heard the absolute banger tracks from games such as Pictionary, Plock, and Silver Surfer that were composed by him and his brother, Jeff Fallen. Sadly, Jeff passed away in May 2024 due to pancreatic cancer. Rest in peace, man, you made some great music. The game takes place at Seaview Hotel, a 3-star hotel the main character Maya and her friends are staying at after initially having planned to camp at a music festival they were attending. The hotel has a dark past that Maya must uncover by communicating with spirits through a ghost and spirit receiver, and she must do so while avoiding Jimmy, who patrols the halls and will knock her unconscious with a bat if he catches her. Maya also has the ability to see into the other world by looking through a scrying mirror, previously seen in Contradiction, another game by Baggy Cat released in 2015. How many people will have their death reservations booked? Let's find out and get to the kills. The game begins with Maya walking towards the hotel, complaining about being left behind by her friends. Maya is played by actress Chloe Buyens, who also stars in the BBC television series Casualty as Andrea Cadell, as well as Olivia in Chernobyl Fallout, released in 2022. She also goes uncredited as a passerby in the 2021 Disney film Cruella. I think this is her right behind Anita. After a late arrival at the hotel, she is assisted by the hotel's proprietor and stage comedian Jimmy Hall, whose social awkwardness only comes off as creepy. He invites her to his comedy show act where he plays a comedic sociopath called Shugo Punch, but she declines, which Jimmy doesn't take too well.
Fine.
As Maya goes to find her room, Jimmy hears a voice saying that the newly arrived guests are naughty and need to be taught a lesson, comparing them to bad eggs.
Bad eggs need cracking, whack 'em hard and crack their shell, kick 'em down the stairs to hell.
Jimmy is often misinterpreted to be suffering from dissociative identity disorder, but his story is instead a theatrical and symbolic representation of someone struggling with two opposing moral paths. Maya wakes up at dead of night when hearing a scream, and when she goes to investigate, she finds Jimmy kidnapping one of her friends. She realizes the door to her room is locked and takes the elevator to the ground floor to call 999, but doesn't know how to work a rotary phone and eventually gives up. She finds the master key, but when she's about to go back to her room, she hears voices from a ghost communication device telling her to get out of the hotel and find out what Jimmy did, and promptly takes the device with her. Maya explores the hotel, and when she takes the elevator after exploring the lower ground floor, she sees a vision of a 10-year-old girl named Amy Bell. Jimmy locked her in the basement and started stealing things from her, such as her purse and teddy bear. As Maya continues to search for clues, she realizes that Jimmy is now looking for her, roaming around the halls and taunting her. Heck, he even misidentifies her as the very channel that inspired me to start this series.
Your death needs Maya!
Maya enters the room and sees a vision of Amy holding a teddy bear that Jimmy set on fire, causing her hand to get severely burned, after which Jimmy threatened her to stay instead of finding a doctor, and she was prescribed a glass of whiskey, heavily intoxicating her. Feeling unusually light in his inebriated state, she jumps from the 3rd floor stairs to her death, fully convinced that she could make it to the bottom safely. Having unraveled Amy's story, Maya continues to the 2nd floor where she sees a man by the name of Dr. Bose knocking on the door to Jimmy's room. Bose had received a call from Jimmy's mother, Rose, who wanted him to talk with her son when someone named Harvey, who is yet to be introduced, expressed concern about the violent pictures Jimmy was drawing. He had been killing animals, such as small birds and rabbits, and upon entering a storeroom, Maya sees a vision of Bose finding a dead rabbit tied to a wire. Bose mentions he asked Jimmy to think of something nice to do, and Jimmy immediately thought of something, making a sandwich. Not thinking anything was wrong at first, Bose asked him to bring it to his room when he was done. Maya then sees Bose throwing up blood in the bathroom on the 1st floor and learns that Jimmy put broken glass in the sandwich. This made Bose realize he needed to urgently step up his treatment for Jimmy with diazepam, a medication that helps treat impulsive behavior in some people. Jimmy, however, refused to let him administer the drug and lied to Rose, claiming Bose had used violence to force him to take it. Bose was worried she would believe the lie, but managed to convince her that Jimmy was making it up. He thought that once Jimmy realized he'd been caught lying, he'd comply with the treatment, but instead, Jimmy just made up a much worse lie, accusing Bose of abuse. This lie came from a newspaper Jimmy had read, revealing the death of another psychiatrist named Krishna Dayananda. Jimmy had put this newspaper clipping into a scrapbook along with another story of an abuser. This time Rose believed the lie and reported Bose to the police. He said he'd lost his career and that, still having the keys to the hotel, he crept in while he was on bail and hanged himself by tying the other end of the rope to the elevator and having it ascend from the lower ground floor. Maya proceeds to the 3rd floor where she sees Harvey talking to Rose, saying Jimmy is making everything up. Rose calls his claims ridiculous and dismisses him, saying that he's just got it in for Jimmy. Harvey is finally introduced as the hotel's former proprietor, and he explains that he'd heard Jimmy's story about Dr. Bose somewhere before. It was from Jimmy's scrapbook. Instead of admitting it, Jimmy just laughed and began setting traps for Harvey, one of them being a heater that had its casing wired straight to the mains, which shocked Harvey, almost killing him. With Rose still not believing him and Jimmy damaging his property, Harvey decided to damage Jimmy's property. He smashed up his television and game consoles, to which Jimmy simply retaliated by setting a crossbow up to fire when Harvey opened the door to the room he was hiding in, sending him to A&E to get stitches and tetanus shots. When he got back, Jimmy had run off and hid in the basement, giving Harvey the idea to lock him inside the boiler room, thinking he couldn't cause any harm down there.
You can stay in there for the night, Jimmy. I've had enough.
Turns out he could, because Jimmy managed to start a fire. They managed to contain it, but old letters and photos and everything else that was down there was burned away. This was a breaking point for Harvey. He wanted Jimmy gone. He grabbed his gun and started practicing with it, intending to threaten Jimmy to get out of the hotel, not realizing Jimmy would also be armed. Harvey finally meets his fate when Jimmy creeps up on him and slits his throat with a dagger. When going to the 2nd floor, Maya sees Rose defending Jimmy, saying that Harvey was going to shoot him and that he acted in self-defense. She explains, as Harvey had previously, that the dagger was just a letter opener that had been sharpened. By the front door of the hotel, Maya sees Rose greeting Jimmy, who had been questioned by the police and was returning home. The police believed him, and Rose explains that it changed him and that he began helping run the hotel, having found a way to bring in more guests with his comedy routine Hugo Punch. She states everything seemed to be getting better until Jimmy started behaving oddly, staring at himself in mirrors, shouting and eventually breaking said mirrors. When Rose asked him about it, he said he didn't remember doing any of it, and even stranger things, not the show, started happening from there. Rose finds a bunch of mannequins in a hallway on the 3rd floor, and while she was confused at first, she came to realize that it wasn't Jimmy doing these things, and that like the mirrors, he was starting to fracture and lose control. Hugo Punch was taking over. During performances, Jimmy started insulting his audience every night, and when a guest told Jimmy what she thought of him, he reacted by locking her in a room and tying her up. Rose found her and let her go, and while she didn't press any charges, she did inform the newspapers. This brought several reporters to the hotel in search of Jimmy, but in reality it was Hugo who tied up the guest. The regret sent Jimmy down a depressive spiral, and he tried committing suicide, writing a goodbye note to his mother. Rose finds him during his suicide attempt, and being unable to live with the lie that she's been keeping from him, she tells him the truth about his father, Hugo Hall. Hugo Hall was a school teacher and a magician under the stage name The Great Hugo, whom Maya sees in a vision while in the ballroom. Rose helped him run the hotel when things started to develop and they got married. But then things took a turn for the worst. He was abusive, and Rose thought having a child would solve everything, but she was wrong. Hugo beat Jimmy from when he was born for 2 years, and Rose had enough, grabbing a bat, bludgeoning him to death and then burying him under a layer of concrete that she mixed herself. She thought telling Jimmy the truth would make her feel better, but it only did the opposite, and knowing Hugo Punch would come after her, she took her own life by self-immolation on the 2nd floor. Jimmy calls out to Maya,
Talking to the dead, Maya.
and she responds that she knows Hugo is his father and that Rose tried to kill him. She asks where Hugo is now, and Jimmy invites her to come meet him in the basement, where the lockers that were previously obstructing a door have been moved. Jimmy goes on to talk about how Rose thought she had gotten rid of Hugo, but then reveals that Hugo's spirit has been possessing him, and that his violent behavior came from all the physical abuse he went through. He says that he and Maya are meant for each other before giving chase, but Maya locks the door and runs off to rescue her friends after finally having found the keys to the rooms they were locked inside. The game ends with Maya and her friends escaping the hotel through a side entrance, taking a deep breath of fresh air. How many guests did Death assist at reception? Let's run out and get to the numbers. I counted 6 kills in At Dead of Night. The victims included 4 men and 2 women, giving us our bluest pie chart thus far. With an average playtime of 8 hours according to How Long to Beat, that leaves us with a kill on average every 80 minutes. My favorite kill goes to Amy Bell, who died by jumping from the 3rd floor while inebriated. It's a genuinely shocking kill that kicks off the game in a very effective way and shows us how messed up Jimmy/Hugo really is. My least favorite kill goes to Dr. Krishna Dayananda, whose death was only revealed in a newspaper with no cause revealed at the time of its publication. And yeah, that's about it. At Dead of Night released in 2020, and a teaser for the sequel, The Great Hugo, was shown in one of Hold Martha's streams, and I can't wait to see what it has in store. With all that said, I've been your host, Natalie Rode, and good night.